It's Rain again with Initiative Tabletop, and for this review we've got something special. We're going to give you a 2 for 1. We're looking at 2 different expansions for Pandemic, the game that we reviewed a little while ago that I was a little excited about. And these 2 expansions came out, this one came out first, On the Brink, and then In the Lab came out. So, as you may know, Pandemic went through a new reprint, and everything looks better, and it's great, and it takes you out to dinner, and it's wonderful. On the Brink is the same deal. It's been reskinned, it looks a lot better, except this one pays for dinner. And In the Lab is something completely brand new that adds a whole lot to the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about each one separately, starting with On the Brink, and we'll kind of look at them and see how they both go on their own, and then I'll come back here for some final thoughts on them both. So that being said, let's take a look at On the Brink, and then we'll switch on over. Alright, so when you open up the box to On the Brink, this is what you're going to see. You get 7 new rule cards, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. But you get these sweet Petri dishes that hold your cubes, and the Petri dishes have these sweet stickers on them so that way you can determine which one goes where. In typical Z-Man style, you've got a sweet insert that holds all your stuff in the box, which is really, really great. It adds 3 different new game modes, so you can play with, first off, the Virulent Strain. And the Virulent Strain, what happens is you take out the normal Epidemic cards and you basically replace them with those Epidemic cards. And whenever one of those is drawn, the player who draws it determines which disease gets the Virulent Strain. And on each one of these Epidemic cards, something extra will happen with the disease that has the Virulent Strain. So it could be anything. For instance, let's take a look at this one. It says, chronic effect. During infections, when a Virulent Strain city is drawn, place 2 cubes in it if the city has no Virulent Strain cubes. So just different things like that could happen. And the cards are self-explanatory, and the rules to the game don't change, it's just added difficulty. Now, the next game mode, and my personal favorite with this one, is Mutations. Now, the mutations are really cool. So you're going to play the game as normal and set it up as normal, except you're going to add the mutation disease cubes, which are, let me grab these for you, which are these purple cubes right here. And you're going to add the mutation cards to the deck. Now, these mutation cards will say, if the purple disease is not eradicated, draw a card from the bottom of the infection deck, place a purple disease cube on this city. So when you're playing with the mutation, you'll notice that there's no purple city cards. So whenever you're going to cure the mutation, because just like with the rest of the game, in order to win, you have to cure the mutation disease as well. So you don't have to eradicate it, but you have to cure it along with the other 4. So, in order to cure the mutation disease, you have to discard 5 cards like normal, but one of those cards has to be a city where a mutation is currently at. So, if you go through the game and you don't have any of the mutation on the board, you basically just have to keep playing, drawing through the player deck until you reach a mutation city. So, it's kind of a catch-22 because it's really fun and it could be hard, or it could be easy. Just depends on when you draw the mutation. But that's my favorite game mode out of On the Brink so far. The last game mode we're going to talk about is the Bioterrorist Challenge. So in the Bioterrorist Challenge, it puts one player who plays as the bioterrorist against the others, and this player is seeking to create panic all through the world, pretty much, with a 5th disease. Now, this challenge works best with 3 or 4 players, but 5 players where it's 1 bioterrorist and 4 other players, it's not usually recommended because it gets too hard for the bioterrorist. So when you start this game mode, you select the bioterrorist player. You're going to give him this bioterrorist card, and it's going to get a black pawn, and finally, this sweet bioterrorist movement sheet. So if you've ever played any game like Letters from Whitechapel, this totally reminds me of Letters from Whitechapel. Because the way this works is you're going to add the mutation disease, so the purple cubes as well, And once you've chosen who the bioterrorist is going to be, 2 infection cards get dealt to the bioterrorist. So after that, you're going to basically try and figure out where the bioterrorist is, because you know which player it is. But all the non-terrorist players take their turns normally, except now they have a possible capture action. If a bioterrorist pawn is on the board, a player in the same city as the bioterrorist may capture him. But before you can do that, you have to figure out where they are, because the bioterrorists move secretly about the board. They don't let you know where they are, so they're just going around the board doing different things. If a bioterrorist moves by a direct flight or a charter flight, they have to announce that they've been seen at this location. So it's kind of a guessing game at that point, because you have to figure out where at on the board they are, go to it, capture them. The bioterrorist uses his infection cards through the game, so they get 2 actions and then can do a move wherever they want to go as normal movement. They can play infection cards, infect cities, and then move. And so that's basically how they do it. So they move around the board infecting cities, and you pretty much have to figure out where they are and capture them. And that's pretty much what's been added with On the Brink. So here you have the new board from In the Lab. So first let me show you the tray. The tray looks almost identical to On the Brink, and it's got your same spaces and everything to put stuff away, but it just has some extra tokens. And I'll talk more about that here in a minute. But this is the brand new board that you're going to be using in conjunction with the board that you got with your new Pandemic. And the In the Lab expansion does come with some new roles. Let me put this guy down too. And the researcher and epidemiologist get updated because they have special abilities that they can do at a research station. What you can do basically in the lab, in order to cure a disease, it's not as simple as discarding 5 cards. Yay, it's done. In the Lab adds all sorts of stuff to it. So you basically have to characterize a disease, process a sample, test the cure, then you can discover a cure. And in order to do that, you're going to have to do some things. So the way this works is while you're at a research station, you may first start off by characterizing a disease. But in order to do that, you have to sequence it. When the game starts, you're going to start with a sequence card up here. This lets you know which type of disease you can cure. And you'll choose which type once you start moving cubes on this. The different colors correspond to the color cubes needed in order to get this sequence going. And whenever someone treats a disease, whether it be through an action or the medic just walking, doing work, however it happens, you can choose to move 1 cube from the board to the sample dishes here. So they start in the sample dishes. And then you can move them by taking lab actions, which are required to be at a research station. So let's say that we've gotten some cubes here, and we know that this disease can either cure red or black. So when you characterize a disease, which is the first thing you can do, you must discard a city card from your hand, matching a color of the disease on the sequence card, in order to select which disease you're going to be curing. So for instance, this one I could choose red or black. So let's say that I had a black city card, I discard it and place it here. That lets me know that this is the city, this is the color of the disease I'm going to be curing, or trying to anyway. Then, after that, you can process a sample. So when you process a sample, there's a lot of different things that go with that. You basically move cubes all around this board. So you either move all cubes of the same color from either one of these dishes to here, or move 1 cube of each color from either of these dishes here. This would be the growth dish, and the cubes would move to the growth dish from these 2 dishes, no matter how they got there. So when they go to the growth dish, you can, when processing a sample, move all cubes in either the centrifuge or separator dish to the growth dish. So whatever cubes are in here, move here. Whatever cubes are in here, move here. And then, finally, when you process a sample, you move cubes from the growth dish onto one of the cards. Now, when you set up a second research station, you can sequence 2 diseases at the same time, or 2 cures at the same time. So that's what this space is for down here. Once you've got some cubes in here, you can process a sample, move them onto the cards here, and they have to go into the colors. The gray areas have to be cubes matching the color of the cure you're trying to find. So in this case, since I have decided to choose black, I need to make red, black, 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 black. So once all of the cubes have been placed on this card, you can test a cure. So you play a city card of the cure color on a research lines test space. So you're going to place, for instance, this one, since we're choosing black, I would place another black card here. I remove 1 cube of the cure color from any city back to the supply. And so there we've sequenced it, characterized it, tested it. Now we can discover it. So if this is filled up with cubes, we've characterized it, we've tested it, then what you do is you discover a cure. You discard 3 cards of the cure's color, and that disease is cured. It's done. So you're still using 5 city cards because you're going to have 1 here and here, but you only need 3 when it comes time to cure the disease. So within the lab, you're basically going to be moving cubes from the board to these 2 dishes, and then moving from these 2 dishes all around using research lab actions. It looks really complicated, and I'm pretty sure I've botched this to make it sound really complicated, but trust me, it's not. There's a bunch of different sequence cards. They come in all shapes and sizes. You can have new events to add to the game. You're going to get new epidemics for the virulent strains as well, brand new mutations, and then you're going to have brand new goals for the single player campaign and some bonuses. So there's a lot of stuff that comes in the lab. It's not just simply, hey, you have to do more work to cure a disease. And honestly, through playing it, I thought that it was going to be a lot harder than it actually was. But you know what? One thing in the lab is definitely fun. Well, there you have it. 2 excellent expansions for an excellent game. So let's talk about them a little bit. On the Brink is a lot of fun. I love the reskin, just like with the original Pandemic being reskinned. I think it looks a whole lot better. I think the components are a lot better. It's got a great packaging inside the box. Absolutely love it. The mutations are awesome. I really like the addition of the mutation and the new cubes and having to now worry about that on top of everything else. The virulent strain is kind of crazy. I think it makes a hard game already much harder, but it's still a lot of fun. And the bioterrorist is crazy. I like that added player to the game that gives it much more of a definite race against time kind of feel, because the game already offers that, but with the bioterrorist, you really don't know what's going on. And you've got to find this person and figure out where they are, what they're doing, and I think it's really great. Now, in the lab, the first time when I popped in the lab out of the box confused the heck out of me. I didn't know what was going on, how to characterize this, what do I got to do with these cards, what am I going to do with this extra board. It was nuts. But once I read into it and then just said, you know what, I'm going to dive head first with it and I'm going to give it a shot, it was a whole lot of fun. I really like that the new board fits perfectly right next to the other board. It doesn't really take up much more table space. One thing I would like to see is that you're supposed to already use the Petri dishes that you have, assuming that you have them from On the Brink. So this is definitely something that you're going to want to have On the Brink for, because if you don't, then it's going to kind of mess things up. But each Petri dish is labeled, but on the board's not labeled. So it just has a picture of what the Petri dish is supposed to be, whether it's a separation dish or the growth dish. And I really would like to see some kind of label, because we played this with a first-time player, and she didn't know what was going on because she didn't know where to move this or where to put that. But other than that, I really like, how the new roles come into play. I like how some of the previous roles have been kind of upgraded. I spent my entire game at a research facility, and I was the busiest. I was doing this, moving this over here. It was really fun, really great. And the components that they add when you get them out, like this is the stuff for the one-player game, and they add the vials, the actual cure vials, which is brilliant. Z-Man, I love you so very much for adding those. As a collector and as a person who likes to be immersed in their game, that was genius. It was perfection. And I really like it. Speaking of the one-player game, it's kind of nuts when you don't really know what all is going to happen and you feel like you're playing against an AI that's kind of unpredictable. It adds a lot of intensity to the game, which is a lot of fun. And I feel like a lot of people were kind of looking for that one-player kind of action, especially with the way that Z-Man released the scenarios, and those are going to be tying in together, I think. So, in the lab, perfect, brand new expansion. On the brink, great reskin of a great expansion. I'm going to go out and say that if you're a Pandemic fan and plan on picking up the game, don't pick it up unless you plan on picking both of these up with it. They are must-buys in our book, and they should be in yours too. So thanks for listening to me on this review, and we will see you next time. And until then, you know what I'm going to say. Happy gaming. Hi there. This is a message to Z-Man Games. My name is Rain, and I like to collect games. I play a lot of board games, and I even review them. And as a collector reviewer of board games, I like nothing more than quality, awesome components. And I wanted to take a couple moments out of my day to say thank you immensely. These are amazing. For anyone out there who has been a Pandemic player for a long time, this is my number one reason to buy in the lab. It's a great expansion, and it's a lot of fun. But these, honestly, you can't tell me that you've never sat down to a game of Pandemic and thought, man, it would be really sweet if we had some vials. Z-Man heard you. They heard my prayers. They heard your prayers. They answered them. And these are awesome. I can't get over it.